Hello, welcome to episode 27. My name is Ross.
And I'm Craig.
And it's time to put the kettle on because it's tea time.
Tea time.
What's the news today, Craig?
Patchy news, I would say. I haven't really got a lot, so I'll fly through some. But first of all, Australian researchers have found a way to recycle face masks.
Oh, good.
And not just any way of recycling them. They've decided to make them into roads.
Okay.
Because that's
Obvious.
exactly what you should do with them. Yeah. So researchers at the RMIT have developed a road-making sort of material combination with shredded single-use masks, which are now everywhere, processed building rubble. So what they've kind of done is they've roughly a kilometer-sized road. They've built it, and they've used 93 tons of waste, which is equivalent to 3 million masks, and they've chucked them into building rubble and made a road.
I mean, why not?
Amazing.
So they've just melted it with some other bits of crap, made a road out of it.
Yeah, not melted. They've just combined them. That's all it says. They've just literally chucked them all together.
It's plastic.
Well, it's like cotton and stuff as well, isn't it? There's other materials there, single-use ones.
Right.
But yeah, they've just made a road. They've made a kilometer two-lane road using 3 million masks. So yeah, that's the future. Roads made from masks.
I feel like there's a pun in there somewhere, but
there is. I did try to think.
Yeah.
Maybe you can edit one in later.
Comments.
Yeah. For the UK, so Rishi Sunak, our Chancellor of the Exchequer, is considering an Amazon tax. Now, if you just had to think off the top of your mind, how often have you heard that being said?
I think 7 this week. I think everyone wants to work out how to tax Amazon because they're a bit upset that they just spend all their money on growth.
Yes. Well, I mean, the whole idea of, Amazon tax or Apple tax or whatever it is, how do you tax the big boys? That's been an ongoing thing for years. They just can't figure out how to tax companies which funnel all their money through offshore tax havens, effectively.
I feel like that should be solvable. What's very difficult to do is if they spend all of their profits reinvesting into the company, well, that's kind of smart business. There's not really much you can do about that. But obviously, if they're sending it off somewhere else, then they should be able to figure that one out. Anyway,
Amazon's case specifically, their profits obviously soared in last year, pandemic, as we discussed last week with Bezos taking his leave. They had a record-breaking quarter of 100 billion, which is, 30 billion a month, which is amazing. In the UK, they accounted for 20 billion in profit in 2020, of which they paid 0.37 in tax. So, not showing the sums there, but that's not 20% corporation tax. That's a hell of a lot smaller. And that's profit too, so that's not reinvest in the company.
Right.
So yeah, that should have been 2 billion tax, really, but it wasn't. It was more like 2 million tax.
So Rishi's got a plan?
He hasn't. As they've all said, they're considering an Amazon tax, and they're ideally trying to claw back the spend of this pandemic, which has completely crippled most countries in the world. Whereas some companies like Amazon have entirely profit. We want to get some money back off them to cover the costs of stuff like furlough. He hasn't got a plan, but I do think Rishi Sunak, as our Chancellor, is probably the best Chancellor we've had in some time, who might have a fair shot. What was the guy's name under David Cameron? He also tried to introduce an Amazon tax and failed miserably. Can't remember that guy's name.
Not the fat guy, not Brown.
No, not the Prime Minister, but the Chancellor of the Exchequer during David Cameron's.
I wish I got that bit. Sorry, yeah.
He was PM for like 6 months. Don't forget Brown.
Hmm.
I can't remember his name, but he tried to do the same thing. It just didn't work. Like, I mean, the argument's always been that, well, we'll just pull out of the country. But I think in Amazon's case, they can't really do that with a big market. Hopefully, Rishi figures out a way. But moving on, in a different sort of news, $1.5 billion of Bitcoin has been bought by Tesla, which I'm sure you've heard all about. It's a big
yes,
thing.
Craig. I'm fully aware of that one. My phone was going crazy with all the sort of the YouTube videos from YouTubers updating me on the same topic. Although I think it's related to the last story, in the sense that it takes one big move from the someone, and lots of people will follow. So if Rishi was to come up with the plan, I think other governments would go, "That's a damn good idea. I'm going to do that too." But anyway, what have they done?
Well, Tesla, as I said, they bought 1.5 billion in Bitcoin, and yeah, the entire here it is. They're just looking to hold some digital assets for some long-term, just asset management. They feel that they should get into that game and expand their assets effectively. They kind of make it sound really boring, but what I think they've done is they've spurred an undoubted cybercurrency future. Cryptocurrency future, rather.
I think what they've done is actually is just basic, normal, sensible finance, in the sense that they've got an absolute ton of cash on their balance sheet, and it's diminishing in value for them. When you've got billions of pounds sat in the bank, effectively, you're literally losing millions per year. So you have to do something. You're compelled to do something. So to put it in Bitcoin is as worth a guess as anywhere else, frankly.
Yeah, and it's a fairly genius move, considering as soon as they did it, they made back. Yeah, I think they've gained a few billion just off the bat, because they increased the price of Bitcoin significantly by doing this move, because it gives it a certain level of authenticity now, where before perhaps you were thinking, Bitcoin, what is it really? But now a big boy's done this, and there's talk of Apple potentially doing something similar, but that's just rumors. Either way, I think people will follow this as a lead.
Yeah.
And yeah, Elon, Tesla, they've done a really good deed. And I'm glad they picked Bitcoin, because he was messing with Dogecoin for a while. But that was obviously just trolling.
Although I read earlier that he's bought some Dogecoin as well for his son or something. What the heck?
Yeah, I mean, there's Mars coin too, which is that was purposely made to get Elon's attention. Like, please pick us.
please use our currency in your new city on Mars.
Yeah, I mean, but should Bitcoin be the currency of Mars? That sounds amazing. But before that happens, you can look to start using Bitcoin to buy a new Tesla in the near future. So that's also quite exciting.
Well, so again, that one's the argument that came from ARK Invest was that if you've got if you're international, if you've got got big setups in China and in America and then in Europe as well, and you want to move money between them, dealing with foreign exchange is painful. And they could do it with Bitcoin; it would cost them nothing. So rather sensible, potentially. And I think other people will follow suit. So if you haven't bought into Bitcoin, whilst I would never give you advice to do so, I would at least advise you to look into it and do your own research, because now is an interesting time. But obviously, it's gone up quite a bit already from Tesla's choice.
Yes.
But it has already pulled back a little bit from there.
It has.
Certainly worth looking into.
I would agree. So I was going to give some numbers on that too.
Oh, go ahead.
So yeah, Bitcoin's currently £32,000 each, about $45,000. But as you said, it has pulled back last week with the announcement, or early this week when the announcement was made. It did hit a peak of $34,000, $48,000. So it's come back somewhat. So if you were thinking of maybe getting in or doing some research, now is a good time. Arguably, this could be the cheapest it ever is, but who knows? Nobody knows really.
Speaking for myself, I am definitely looking into increasing my position this week.
Cool. Okay. Moving on to another cryptocurrency, another 1.5, but in this term, millions, is China's plans. So I'm not sure if you've seen this, but China have their own digital currency. They're looking to adopt and produce. And they are looking to test it during the Lunar New Year, which is this week. And they're handing out 1.5 million worth of the currency in limited trials into digital bank accounts. And they're doing this by just basically giving 10 million yuan, distributed through 50,000 packets of 200 yen, and just giving them out effectively as part of the People's Bank of China.
Everyone's getting a 200 yen little bonus in their digital bank. And then...
Yeah, not everyone, but about 50,000 people.
Right, sorry, yeah. And then what? They can just spend it however they want for anywhere that supports this new currency.
Yes, but it's an official government thing, so you can imagine being a communist country which owns most of the industry, you'd imagine most things would start accepting this, like trains, buses, that type of stuff. The details haven't been said yet. They're still in trial phase, but it's very interesting that a country, especially the size of China, is developed its own cryptocurrency to use. So that's quite, I think that's quite interesting, considering that most of their reserves in money is in the US dollar. So should they start abandoning that type of stuff, China could single-handedly topple the fiat system. If it wanted to.
Right. Sell my shares. Sell my shares. Here comes the crash.
And finally, as we also mentioned Jeff Bezos earlier, he's now jumped ship from Amazon, and he's jumped ship straight into Blue Origin, as we kind of suggested he would be doing.
Yep.
So he's now directly taking on SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's company, as we all know. Yep. And he is trying to face them head on and try and get the NASA's moon landing project, which is just a new lunar lander. SpaceX is going for it. There's a couple of other people's too, Dynetics, Leos Holdings, and now Blue Origin. So should Bezos get this, that's a fairly big win. So maybe dropping from Amazon to focus his attention on this was a good move.
If he gets this, I mean, I don't know every single fight, but generally speaking, when it comes to Elon versus Jeff tends to lose as far as I can see.
And I assume Elon will now give this quite a lot of his personal attention. He seems to like a challenge.
Well, the rivalry between them has been going on for quite some time. So.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun, though, to be honest. I kind of hope that they actually have I hope it's like a friendly rivalry. I hope they actually enjoy the sort of competitiveness of it. I hope it's not actually bitter as it seems to be. But
well, no, but I mean, competition is only a good thing, really. Both companies will compete for NASA. The fact that NASA's even introducing third-party companies is because it can no longer do this itself. And SpaceX and Dynetics and Blue Origin. I'm not sure who Dynetics are. They kind of feel like they're the third wheel. They're not going to get much of a say in here. But this is a Bezos versus Musk. So this is interesting. I'd like to see how that plays out. Yeah,
I'm sure we will.
Hard job for whoever that NASA executive's job is to decide.
Yeah.
Which Rolls-Royce Smart would you like to choose? The first one or the second one?
Do you want your Tesla Model Y to arrive late, or every package you've ever ordered to arrive late? One of them is going
to. Yeah. That's all I have. What have we got this week?
Well, let me first start with a new hydrogen flavored can of Campbell's soup to tickle your fancy, your taste buds. apparently could be the future of clean, and I emphasize the word clean, hydrogen. So scientists from the Fraunhofer Institute for Manufacturing Technology and Advanced Materials in Dresden, otherwise known as IFAM, because who the hell can pronounce all that crap, has made a sludgy grey paste, and if I get time and editing, I will put up a picture, which heats hydrogen with magnesium and also some stabilizers, so that the hydrogen can be stored in cartridges or some capacity at room temperature. Because remember in our hydrogen episode, we talked about how getting the stuff around is a nightmare because you need to compress it, or you need to call it to keep it cooled or whatever. It's a nightmare to sort of move around, and it rusts pipes and all that sort of stuff. Rust pipes, it deteriorates them, all that sort of stuff. So the idea here is they've mixed hydrogen with magnesium and some other stuff to make this disgusting looking like Campbell's soup type mixture, which the idea is that when you mix it with water, it reacts, and the water in the hydrogen, the hydrogen in the water, coupled with this weird mix, gets the hydrogen out of both the water and the mix to create or to release the hydrogen. So that's the theory, and apparently the results are that because it can be stored at room temperature, it's a stable medium, and it apparently has 10 times more energy dense than a lithium-ion battery.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know. I feel like there's a story like this all the time, but this one seemed the most sensible of the ones I've seen. So I thought I would announce it just in case you heard it here first.
Cool. Just a quick thing with that one. Adding magnesium, which is a flammable item, to hydrogen, which is a flammable item, into a small container. Kind of sounds like you're making something that's unsafe more unsafe.
Sounds like you're making some sort of bomb, doesn't it?
Does a bit, yeah. Especially if it's literally in a can.
Apparently the stabilizers, well, I mean, sometimes when you mix two compounds together, they makes it benign, but yeah, that's the theory here. You've mixed two very reactive things together, and it's made it unreactive and stable. Who knew?
Cool. Okay, we'll take their word for it.
Or it's a can of soup that blows up. We're not quite sure. Right, going back to our conversation about Mars and stuff, tensions are rising as the race to Mars has suddenly got a bit more interesting this week, because both the United Arab Emirates and China have both launched probes. I mean, they launched them ages ago, but they're both arriving in Mars, around Mars this week.
Oh,
The last couple of days. So the United Arab Emirates one arrived first, and then the Chinese one arrived yesterday. That would be Tuesday, and both have successfully entered into Mars's orbit. The Chinese probe has already returned a grayscale picture of the Mars's surface. No idea why it's grayscale. Supposedly it's got this very high density cameras, beautiful cameras that's just going to go round and round on Mars taking lots of pictures. I don't know why the first thing it sent back was grayscale, but maybe they needed it in a hurry, so they condensed it or something. I don't know. But anyway, it's sending pictures, and apparently it's going to stay in orbit until May. I don't know why it's so long, but it's staying until May, and then it's supposed to be launching its rover to land on the surface in May. But not to be outdone, the US also has something on its way, which will be the rover you may have heard of, Perseverance. So that one is due to arrive next Thursday. So there's now going to be three of them all fighting not fighting, but all sort of competing to be the most interesting probe at the same time. But to put it in context, over the last 60 years, there's been a dozen missions to Mars, and of which everyone that's tried to land on the surface, about half of them have crashed. So things are about to get, interesting, possibly in
They
a
are.
sort of explodey kind of way. But who doesn't like to watch something smash into our? Unfortunately, we won't get to see it, or maybe we will. Maybe one of the other ones will take a picture of the probe blowing up. We might actually get live action of destruction.
Yeah.
Extremely expensive kit.
Mars fails.
Mars.
But just as a quick thing, we talked about Dynetics being the third wheel in the whole Bezos versus Musk thing. What's the UAE doing there? United Arab Emirates. They don't seem like they're suited for a mission to Mars.
They thought they'd send.
They just had to watch.
Are they even putting on it, or they just sent a probe there just so they go, yeah, we got there first. Ha! I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I couldn't find any what's coming back from that one, but I'm sure there's a plan somewhere.
Fair enough.
Hopefully they'll start sending stuff
oil-powered
this week, and then we can show what it sent back. Because, I would put the grayscale one up, but it's a red planet. Seeing it grey just looks weird. It's like a moon. It's not interesting. Not interesting enough.
No, we've seen Mars.
Okay, so in other news, remembering our roots to the UK, hundreds of hills across the UK could be transformed into renewable energy batteries through hydropower, but a pioneering new system, which basically, rather than having to use very steep dam cliff type thingies, we're using just the normal British rolling hill. Because what they've done basically is that instead of sending water down the damn thing, they're sending a very dense, it mentions it being, what's the word they used? Nutrient rich or something. Not quite sure what the nutrients relevance is, but basically a denser liquid running down the mountain rather than normal water. Basically, effectively, I think it makes it go down faster, so they can still use the same sort of turbine system at the bottom, but you don't require the big levels of geology and height that makes dams only suitable in certain places. So basically, it opens up the possibility to hydropower in a lot more areas, which would be wonderful, frankly, wouldn't it? So
we have a lot of those in Wales, so I'm sure they could do with that.
Apparently lesser environmental impacts. I did notice on the diagram, it was quite interesting. They had the dam on the left, the traditional dam with its steep thingies, and then they had the little one with the same power thing at the bottom. And in the diagram, the little hill had trees on it, just to highlight that it had a lesser environmental impact than a big concrete dam.
Yeah, I mean the main thing there is because they're underground.
Oh, under the hill, you mean?
Yeah, they're not on the surface, I suppose, so there's no actual damage.
Yes, I do. I mean, like, it's completely off topic, really, but well, not off topic, but it's there's that what do they call it? Hydrophobic pipes. I haven't heard whether that's been. Have you heard of a hydrophobic pipe? It's like a material inside a pipe, which basically stops the water from being able to sort of like smoothly rest on it. And basically what happens is if you pour water into it, it absolutely guzzles it out the other side.
Oh no.
So it basically speeds up the flow of water through the pipe. So I'm not quite sure why that hasn't been used yet, because you think that would be the perfect thing to put in, because then you wouldn't need some nutrient rich dense water. You could just use normal water, chuck it through a hydro thingy pipe. But anyway, that's conjecture. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not a scientist, but there we go. And finally, in some investment news, if you are not into the somewhat Marmite Cybertruck, of which I have a pre-order, no idea whether I'm going to do it or not, but I have one anyway. If you're not into that, then the next coolest thing on the block would be the Rivian. I don't know if you've seen the adventure pickup truck that they've done.
I haven't.
That's the one. They've got this they got a hole. Doesn't sound cool, but it is. It's got a hole through the center of the truck, which is like behind the seats, but before the pickup part. There's basically a channel that goes right through the middle. So they've turned it into like a place that you can either store skis, or you can put in like a big like a camping like kitchen, like a pull-out kitchen.
Okay.
So you pull up and then you kind of open your little hatch thing, and you slide out this kitchen, and then you can kind of cook on it, right? So anyway, it's the Rivian. It's very cool. It can go around in little circles because it's got 4 motors, 1 on each wheel. So they are thinking about IPOing in the traditional fashion. They're not doing this current trend of doing a reverse SPAC, but they are. So they're going to go down the traditional IPO route. Now, just to give context, Rivian are invested heavily by Amazon already. So they're expecting them to use the Rivian base for their delivery vans. Ford have also invested 500 million or something like that into them. So they're probably going to be getting Rivian to build some of their stuff. Now, the famous Ford truck, the F-150, I don't know whether that's going to be based on the Rivian in the future or what, but probably the most interesting thing is that the valuation of this IPO is at 50 billion. To put that in context, Ford, who's invested in them, their total market cap today, given how many cars they produce, is only 45 billion. So that seems expensive, but if you are the maker of every single Amazon delivery truck and potentially all the Ford F-150s, for which is probably the most, I'm pretty sure it is the most popular selling car for Ford, then you can kind of see potentially why it might be getting that valuation. But yeah, so that should happen in September. So if you're not investing yet and you're interested, get yourself ready by September.
Never heard of them, but that's very interesting. And the whole concept of they are IPOing at a higher value than Ford, who basically invented the car. So that's quite a kick in the teeth.
Well, kind of, yeah. Anyway, so that's me done. What is the topic for the day?
So it's one
for those that haven't read the title.
Yeah, spoiler. It's one we've chatted about for some time of we should do this, and I've wanted to do it, and it's all about sleep. So I touched on sleep a couple of weeks back with the how to live to 180, and I induced sleep when I chatted about Bitcoin. So it kind of makes sense that we now have a chat about what is sleep. And I mean, the biggest question for me has always been to sleep or not to sleep. Like sleep has, to be honest, is this one?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's not a choice, is there, to not sleep? That makes you go crazy. But you mean whether to sleep lots or not, or to sleep a little? Yes.
Sort of, yes. Sort of. We can delve into the known studies, but yeah, sleep has, to be honest, been for me a right pain in the ass. And that's not because until recently I slept on a broken mattress. That's a true story. I'm very tight. I'm thinking more of the time it takes from my life. So the question of whether or not to sleep has always plagued me with probably the last decade, where I've experimented with sleeping bare minimum, sleeping at odd times, like multiple naps. I've slept too much and all the bits in between. I've always wanted to try and find my optimal sleeping routine because I hate the fact that it takes a third of my day. So I've always tried to shave off some time. I'm going to share what I've learned from my readings and experiences in this chat. So hopefully that works. But TLDR, what I have learned is the shorter you sleep, the shorter your lifespan. Yeah, which is absolutely unfortunate because
just based on the fact you've died many times, or is that just
no, it's just what the research seems to point at. Unless you are genetically rare, sleep is the most effective thing we can do to reset our brains, and is essential for body health. So it's needed every day. And most of us, frankly, need a certain level of sleep just to function in day-to-day life. The estimates so far are around 6 to 8 hours which is true for the majority of us. So, I mean, does that ring true for you, Ross? 6 to 8 hours?
Yes, although I do feel like in the winter I definitely sleep longer. Like when I was sleeping about 6.5, maybe 7 hours during the summer, and I felt like I was sleeping too much then because I have the same issue with you. As I feel like it's not so much. I don't think of it as a third of the day. I think of it as 30 years potentially of my entire. Like the idea of spending 30 full years in bed just upsets me. But
yeah.
But yeah, in the winter, I feel much worse. I feel like I need like 8, 9, 10 hours sometimes. It's just I'm useless in the winter, which is why I've started taking vitamin D recently in the hope that I can curb that problem. But so yeah, so yes, roughly speaking, yeah.
Okay, I mean that's interesting. I mean, it's dark in the winter. That could just be a thing. There's different, affective disorders are seasonal, which could also be there. But yeah,
I am sad.
Got a sad lamp?
I did have. I don't at the moment. I used to wake up and basically like sort of like practically kiss the thing. I used to just wake up, just put my face on it, going, wake up type thing. It didn't really work. I think I needed like something more, like the sun in my room in order for it to make it feel any bit different.
Something a bit real. Yeah. Well, I suppose the first step to understanding how this all works is what is sleep. And you might be surprised, but in short, we don't fully understand. No one actually knows, which is typical. But all we know is all biology seems to have a sleep requirement, and we only have best guesses as to why. So everything sleeps, but yeah, we just don't know why. But to break it down to the parts of the ones we do understand, let's chat about melatonin. So this is a chemical in the brain, which we know about, and it sort of determines your circadian rhythm, which is one of the two factors determining how, when, and how long you sleep. So melatonin does this by regulating the timing of when sleep occurs by signaling darkness throughout us or just the organism in general. But it kind of has little impact on the sleep generation itself. All it does is get us ready. Doesn't really do much more than that. The bit that makes us sleep is sleep pressure. So that's caused, and it happens throughout the day, it's a buildup of pressure within our body. And it's a chemical called andensine, which is in the brain, and it effectively forces us to sleep. So think of the pressure like holding your breath. Eventually you have to breathe. So you can feel that pressure building, the urge has to breathe. So sleep works in a very similar way. Pressure builds, and eventually you will sleep, with or without your agreement, really. Like you can't just fall asleep at any willy-nilly moment. And some people take caffeine to buy them some more like awake time. And this does work because it blocks the receptors in the andensine areas of the brain. It takes roughly 30 minutes to do that. But the jury is out whether or not this is really effective or even a good thing. It might just be quite unhealthy to do. But some people as well do have the ability to process caffeine faster than others. So they can hit them quite quickly and be very efficient. But the problem we do seem to see is that over time, caffeine effects do get less efficient as we age. So if you're already at the point now where you need a coffee in the morning to wake up, that's only going to get harder the older you get. Does that describe you at the moment?
I do feel like I need a coffee in the morning. I could cope with the fact that it'd be 8 hours or 9 or whatever, however long. What I would really like to change is just the feeling that when I wake up, that I'm happy to be awake. I'm
refreshed,
fed up of waking up and feeling groggy. Like that's not what I want to feel when I wake up. When I wake up and go, cool, I'm up, let's go. I don't. I wake up and go, oh, give me another 10 minutes. I hate that. I experienced it once, maybe twice. And it was, I remember exactly where I was. I was in Brazil And I was sleeping outside in a hammock, and I woke up and the sun was on my face, and I woke up and I was ready to go straight away. It's the only time I've ever experienced that.
Natural.
I think both times I woke up completely bathed in sunlight.
I suppose that would be the natural way.
Yeah, so that's the only way that works for me, but I can't do that inside.
No, I suppose that's where a sun lamp would come in handy, a sad lamp.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I had to like put my face on it, and it still didn't make me feel any different.
Maybe it wasn't a very good one. But
a nuclear reactor in my room in order to apparently do anything.
Well, that'd be a cool experiment, I suppose.
Set fire to one of those hydrogen paste things.
Yeah, I would do that. I don't think brightness would be an issue then. I think death might be.
Right.
But so sleep itself, it isn't binary. So there's not just awake and there's sleep. There's stages. So there's roughly 3 main stages, which is REM, deep, and light. And the REM stage, and part of this is also NREM, but we're just going to cover REM itself, is mostly to do with how your brain sorts the information you've learned that day. So think of your wake state. When you're awake, you're out there, you're sort of in a reception, you're receiving all this information, it's all going in. And then your NREM sleep is your reflection. This is when you are storing, strengthening those raw neurons in your brain, where you're adding new facts, new skills, new information that you've learned. And then your REM sleep is the final integration part. And this is where you then interconnect the things you've just learned with other things you've already learned, and you build that complete net. And those are incredibly important parts of sleep. Without that, you hypothetically wouldn't be storing the information that you've learned that day.
Yeah.
So you can see how not going to sleep or having limited sleep already damages that process. But REM sleep is also incredibly crucial for creativity. Without REM sleep, creativity potentially might not even be possible. So there's a famous story of Salvador Dali, who used to fall asleep with a spoon. And his method of painting used to be, he'd fall asleep holding a spoon. As he fell asleep, the REM state is typically the state you enter first. And then he would drop the spoon, wake up in REM sleep, already be in some sort of delirious, dream-filled experience, and he'd start painting. And he credits some of his best masterpieces to this process of unconscious.
He woke himself up. He deliberately woke himself up during REM.
Yes, he was holding a spoon. He fell asleep. The spoon dropped out of his hand.
Oh, that woke him up.
Yeah.
Was it a heavy spoon? It was a plastic.
It might have been.
And a cardboard. He didn't hear a thing. He stayed asleep for the next 6 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I probably didn't work all the time, but let's say every now and then he woke up, the spoon hit the floor. He woke up, delirium, started painting. I suppose it's a safer version of taking LSD or something. It's easy to do it this way. Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, so he has a bunch of dream-filled masterpieces which he credits. There's also good evidence to suggest that REM sleep recalibrates the fine emotional circuits of the human brain. So this is why humans tend to have a lot of it. We have a quite neatly tight emotional circuitry, and our nightly REM sleep recalibration of this seems to have scaled rapidly with our environment. So the whole evolution of humans, we started out quite in small tribes, and then we get to bigger tribes up towards 250-ish. And our REM ability does seem to have gained during that same time, suggesting that our emotional capability was needing more interconnection, more recalibration on a nightly basis. So this allowed us to scale rapidly and exponentially, unite as bigger tribes, and eventually conquer the world. So REM sleep is very important. Maybe, we don't really give as much credit as due. That could be our single biggest thing that we've ever had.
Yeah.
Our single determiner. So other than those obviously amazing advantages, REM sleep is also probably the best sleep cycle stage of the entire night. So you'd want as much of it as possible. The average is around 15 to 25% of your sleep. And the thing that damages that time the most is alcohol. It's the most powerful suppressor of REM sleep that we know of. So the idea is do your best to limit alcohol and do not drink 3 hours before you go to sleep. 3 hours.
I take it
Otherwise, you are
2 hours before I go to sleep as well, or 1 hour. Or is it just something
No.
specific about 3?
Yes, very specific.
Exactly 3 hours, no drinking. Either side, absolutely fine.
Right, that's how REM sleep works.
Well, that's why we
That's what
call it tea time and not cider time, because just in case you like to watch it late at night or listen to it.
Well, yeah, we record these late at night, but I assume most people are probably watching them. I don't know.
Yeah. Can you tell?
No, I just assumed it was always like black outside for some reason. But yeah, so don't drink alcohol 3 hours before bed. Otherwise, you damage your REM sleep, which is the most important sleep. And yeah, you just bad on you.
I won't. Yeah, maybe on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's fine. So next we have deep sleep. So another incredibly important sleep stage, not quite as important as REM, but probably secondary place. Deep sleep is when your muscles relax and repair itself. Your blood pressure also drops, which is a good thing, and energy is restored. So you typically have an average of 12 to 23% of your sleep in deep sleep. So if we add those together, almost 20 to 50% of your sleep is now REM and deep, which is good. So what's the rest of it? This would be light sleep. If anything,
Or a week.
this is the sleep stage you can reduce. So it takes an average of 40 to 60% of your sleep, which is responsible for arguably kind of getting you ready for the other deeper stages. So it's needed, but perhaps not as much as 60% of your sleep. So if there was saving to be done, this is where it could be done. So during light sleep, your heart and breathing rates are lower than they are when you're awake. And there's bursts of electricity activity in your brain, which is kind of lapping around, boosting your brain's communication systems. In effect, again, that's ready for deep stages where you start recalibrating. And it also stimulates your ability to remember and learn. You do dream in light sleep, which is quite cool, but you don't tend to have coherent dreams. So if you ever remember a dream and it just didn't make any sense, chances are it was a light sleep dream. Okay. And if you wake up during light sleep, you might not have even known you were sleeping at all. That's how light it could very well be. Those times when you kind of drop off and then you wake up and you remember like you were dreaming maybe. That's like a weird light sleep dream.
Times when I go, was I just asleep then? And then I catch myself asking myself that question and go, if I have to ask, I probably was.
Yeah. I used to have this really awkward one where like it was a light sleep dream where I felt like I was just drifting off, but I must have already fallen asleep. And I was on a swing and I fall off. I had that dream a lot. It was really annoying because before you hit the floor, you always wake up, you jump, you jump.
Yeah.
Hated it. Light sleep dreams.
I hate the dreams where they're so realistic that it takes you a good couple of minutes after you wake up to work out whether or not that was real or not. Type thing. Like I've about crashing my car or something or something like that, or being late for something, and then you wake up and go, I crashed my motorbike, damn. Then you go, I don't have a motorbike. What we're talking about? And it takes it takes a while. Or like, I was late for that interview. And go, yeah, but I don't have any interviews.
I already have a job.
Very annoying. Very annoying.
Yeah, so they would be REM sleep dreams. So your REM sleep dreams are the creative, the fun-filled, the more laborious ones that take over larger portions of the brain. And you are typically in muscle paralysis during these dreams. Your brain literally stops you from acting out those dreams as best as it can. And again, we have no idea why we dream. Best estimates, it's kind of like a screensaver, just keeping the brain active while it's doing the work. And that's all we know.
The way I see it, it's like that calibration process has to like send pulses through the neurons. It has to fire the synapses, and it's like sort of an accidental, like you can't touch the mechanism to recalibrate it without accidentally sparking it, and therefore you get all these related sort of dreams, which will often be quite realistic because they're connected to something that happened recently. So it's like you've just sparked a recent thought, and it's just sent it off on one, and then so you've accidentally done it. If you know what I mean, that's how I say it anyway.
Yeah, most possible. Yeah, we just don't know. And even though we have plenty of brain scans of sleeping people, we see activity. And sometimes when you're sleeping, there's the same activity as if you was awake. It's really hard to determine a sleeping brain, which in itself is mad, because you are clearly sleeping. I mean, you could be in full muscle paralysis. Your brain is as active as it was, 5 hours ago when you was doing day-to-day activities, which is, it's mad. Kind of shows that the brain just never really does turn off. It is always full pelt, doing its thing. And the dream is maybe just a way to distract yourself, or they are accidental neuron firings, which somehow our brain makes a coherent vision out of. And even though you feel like you dream for maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes, that 10, 20 minutes is probably 4 hours or 3 hours of really slow time progress. So that's typically all we know. We can see certain things happening when a person is dreaming, and it always lasts a lot longer than they think.
Or we only remember the last minute of it.
Yeah.
Whatever fired last type thing. Like it got wiped out in the process.
Yeah. Lots of people have a lot of success keeping dream diaries and stuff where they wake up, write down their dreams, because you will forget them, and it's always cool to read them back.
I don't do it as much now. I used to when there was a period. I went through a period of having lots of dreams when I was younger, but I don't remember them anymore. Doesn't happen as often now. I was obviously more stressed, wasn't
I? Maybe you're learning more. Maybe life is less stressful these days.
I'm learning less. Great, brilliant.
Or maybe your mind is so full of stuff that I don't know. I don't know. If you are accidentally firing neurons, you should be dreaming more as you get older, because there's more stuff in there.
I reckon it was. I must have been a more emotional time, and my brain was full of some other chemicals.
Are you just doing emotional recalibration?
Yeah. Luckily, I've grown out.
Maybe. So that's the stages. So how we sleep. So in the developed nations, so the westernized world like us, we typically sleep, as we said, between 6 to 8 hours in a monophasic pattern, which is basically one long slumber, and that's it. Sleep for a full solid 6 to 8 hours and call it done. However, other cultures, which especially those untouched by technology and electricity, sleep very differently. So hunter-gatherer tribes, such as the Gabra in northern Kenya, they kind of sleep a biphasic pattern, which is a single lump of time, say 6 to 8 hours, but then they'll also have a 30 to 60 minute nap later on in the day, kind of like a siesta.
Yeah.
And that's completely normal. And all the studies have shown so far that biophasic sleeping is more superior, which again adds more evidence to the longer you sleep, the longer you live. And then unsurprisingly, then in places like in northern Greece, where they still have siestas, and I'm sure this is in Spain too, men are nearly 4 times as likely to reach the age of 90 as are American men. And primarily because of siestas and the fact they sleep more. So it's a very big determiner. And we did discuss a couple of weeks back with living to 180, that sleep is a very important part. We're not sure how much, 10, 20, 30, 50%. We have no idea. But all we know is it is important. Have more of it. And talking of our age, sleep does change the older we get. So in childhood, changes in our deep NREM sleep always precede cognitive and developmental milestones. So typically within weeks or months of us doing something like maybe learn to speak or learn to read, we can sort of see patterns in our NREM sleep already, which does give the suggestion that our brain and sleep may be driving brain maturation. So the actual chemicals that produce the brain in the first place could be happening while we sleep, not the other way around. So it's not as recalibrating the brain when we sleep. It's more of we're building the brain as we sleep, which could be a different way of seeing it entirely. Especially in childhood, that seems to be the case. But then in midlife and old age, they appear to need just as much sleep as they did when they were younger. So the whole, when you're older, you need less sleep is a complete myth. That's not true at all.
Darn it, I was looking forward to that.
Yep. If anything, as you enter your 4th decade of life, so
all right.
Maybe you can elaborate, but there does seem to be a reduction in the electrical quantity and quality of deep NREM sleep. And this is kind of the older we get, is related to the more frequently we wake up through the night due to sleep fragmentation. So do you suffer anything like this, any sort of sleep fragmentation, or do you sleep soundly throughout the night?
No, I mean, I occasionally get woken up, but no, as a general rule, I'm pretty solid once I'm down.
Cool. I mean, you've only literally started that point, I suppose. So I suppose this is more later on in our 60s and stuff. But yeah, sleep fragmentation becomes a thing. And yeah, our quality of sleep suffers the older we get. So get as much as you can when you're younger, basically. So why should we sleep? I mean, if the advantages what we've already talked about are not good enough, the biggest advantage is memory, which we haven't chatted about. So sleep has proven itself to be the biggest in terms of memory, and it's the biggest memory aid. Before learning, we prepare our brain initially for making new memories, and after learning is all done through sleep. So hypothetically, if we learn something and we didn't sleep on it, we could very well not remember it in the first place and just lose it. There's no evidence to say we could prevent the forgetting of that memory unless we sleep. There's no way to cement it in. It stays in short-term memory and just gets wiped out at some point. Yeah, so memory, essential, really. Kind of makes sense.
I feel like my memory's bad. But at the same time, I mentioned something to my sister earlier on. She's like, how did you remember that? Because it was something from like 20, 30 years ago. But I just think it comes down to whatever you decide to revisit. Like if I revisit a memory, then, as in like you have your short-term memory, then it goes into medium or term or whatever. So if you frequent it, I think you keep it. If you're like me and you're always thinking about the next thing, you don't think about what happened before. Just disappears. I think that's part of the reason it's not really so much my brain's not capable of memory. It's just I never cycle those paths of my brain, and so I don't. As if I looked at pictures more from the past, I would remember things more. And if I had a picture, I could suddenly remember something that I completely didn't know I remembered, if something. But so I think that's kind of largely down to it.
It's going in basically, but not consciously.
Yeah, but day to day, I would say my memory is awful.
Yeah, maybe you need more sleep, perhaps. Or maybe you need to, I don't know, read the things you want to remember before you go to sleep. That often helps.
I think
But
I distract myself with other things. I'm like, oh, let me shine. Oh, let me shine.
Well, we do these chats before we go to bed, so maybe we'll remember these things tomorrow. I mean, you definitely will, because you're going to spend all day tomorrow editing it.
Always remember every single episode, yeah. As I know you do too, viewers at home, listeners at home.
Oh yeah, definitely. So outside of memory, the other advantage is creativity. So the evidence in the study suggests that without sleep, there is no creativity. So obviously we talk about Salvador Dali, who swears by this, but otherwise, if you have a creative job as well, getting more sleep might be the best thing for you. It's a complete win-win. There doesn't seem to be an ability for the brain to have creativity without sleep sort of recalibrating every now and again to sort things out. The whole connections, I suppose, are required.
Right.
So that's the positives. Negatives. Firstly, brain function buckles under even the smallest dose of sleep deprivation. So I think we've all experienced this, like drowsy driving. Like I've had this a few times.
Yeah.
I think everyone has. I've been in some quite close calls, to be honest, with drowsy driving. But yeah.
Yeah, I've had not so much close calls, but just having some driving times where I'm literally almost physically fighting with myself to stay awake, and I'm like, it's not any particular reason for it. It's not like I've had a particularly really late night. It's just that maybe it's dusk or whatever, and my the melatonin or whatever it is that's producing my body makes me think, oh, it's time for sleep, and I'm literally fighting with myself. I'm slapping myself, I'm window down. It's horrible. I hate it. Long drives.
Yeah. It's just the sleep pressure is building, and nothing can stop it. It's going to come out. Yeah. You can't reduce it. There's no cure in a sense. But yeah, drowsy driving kills someone every single hour in the US, which is a mad stat, and it's very common. But not only this, participants who are in sleep-deprived studies consistently underestimate the degree to which their performance is reduced. So it's one of those things where you can say, you feel, I'm all right, but you're not even realizing how bad you are. I suppose it's like someone who has a couple of pints, because I can drive, it's fine. And then, you crash and go, whoa, I didn't see that car. It's like, yeah, because, you've had a few too many. So sleep's kind of the same, but if not worse. So humans need more than 6 to 8 hours of sleep each night to maintain cognitive performance. The average is we should have 8 to have the highest cognitive performance. But yeah, 6 to 8 is typical range. And after 10 days of just 7 hours of sleep, the brain is as dysfunctional as it would be going without sleep for 24 hours. So I find that quite a mad realization, because I typically sleep less than that, to be honest, and I don't class myself as dysfunctional. But yeah, maybe I've never seen my full potential because I don't sleep that much. Who knows? But I talked about me in a little bit. But if that doesn't sound bad enough, those fundamental points, here's some quick fire ones. You also have many emotional and psychiatric problems if you miss sleep. If you don't sleep in the night, as I mentioned earlier, you fail to learn and consolidate the memories you've learned that day. It also increases weight gain. You have a loss of reproductive capabilities. And you also have a shorter life, increase the chance of cancer, heart attacks, Alzheimer's, and all that type of goodness. Either way, sleep is a very obvious thing to do, and maybe you can start seeing why we spend a third of our time doing it. There's a lot of benefits there.
Yeah, it's just, is there any way of gaming it? Can you have the same thing but without all the time asleep?
Well, yes and no. So this is where we chat about will naps save me, and this is probably the most not really understood area. People are experimenting. It's very anecdotal. There's no scientific evidence at all to say any drug or device or any amount of psychological willpower can replace sleep. Power naps do momentarily increase basic concentration under conditions of sleep deprivation, as can caffeine up to a certain dose, but neither naps nor caffeine can replace actual sleep. And what the sleep does, the functions of the brain, the recalibration, learning, memory, emotional stability, reasoning, all that type of stuff, it can't be replaced by naps. That's roughly what we know. But again, it's a very under-researched area. We don't really know everything yet. I think I mentioned earlier, there is a rare collection of individuals who appear to survive on 6 hours or less sleep and show minimal impairment. They were studied where they were kind of put in laboratory environments and not given alarm clocks, and they consistently still woke up roughly 6 hours of sleep, no more, and performed well on certain tests that showed they were completely fine. Having limited sleep for long periods of time just didn't really seem to matter to these types of people. Part of the explanation there relies in genetics, which is especially a subvariant of a gene called BHLHE41. That one.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Yeah. If you got that one, 6 hours of sleep kind of puts you into the elite sleep club.
Well,
If you haven't got that gene. If you haven't got that gene, then you're like everyone else who needs 6 to 8. Yes. So, yeah, the whole sleep thing, very genetically driven. So when you hear someone talking about sleeping less, maybe they got the gene. Maybe they haven't. Maybe they're just, mentally dysfunctional and don't even realize.
Or they're just going to die early.
Yeah, that's the other fun thing to look forward to. So, assuming you are not part of the genetic elite club, naps can do you well, but they do not replace the real need of sleep. So that leaves us onto one sleep style we haven't discussed yet: nap-only sleep. So the polyphasic type of sleeping. So I know we've had chat with this before, and I've been experimenting it before. So I'll make this one as quick as possible because there's very little scientific evidence to suggest this works. It's mostly anecdotal evidence from people who've experimented, and I'm just one of them. So this style of sleep is a simple way of segmenting your sleep. So you can still keep the same time, 6 to 8 hours if you wish, and you segment that over the day in parts of naps. So you don't have a monophasic sleep, you now have a polyphasic sleep of, say, 6 naps throughout the day. And the most extreme version of this, you can get away with as little as 2 hours, which utilizes almost 100% REM and deep sleep only, almost annihilates light sleep. So this is where we enter some guy called Dustin Curtis, who originally started doing this. It's called the Uberman sleep pattern. And he developed a way of sleeping 6 20-minute naps over the entire day, separated by 4 hours. So on the dot, you'd have to nap. You can't oversleep. You can't skip a nap. And the initiation phase is brutal because you're meant to reduce your sleep by half an hour a day until you get down to these nap levels. very hard to do and very unpleasant should you not be someone who does this easily. So I did attempt to copy this style probably about 10 years ago when I was younger. I did manage to do it for a couple of weeks, and then it was just too much, and I ended up retreating back to what I was doing previously, which is a 5.2 hour sleep, which is called the everyday man sleep. And that's a 4.5 hours of core sleep, followed by 2 20-minute naps, 4 hours segmented afterwards. I did sleep that way for the best part of a year. But again, I was younger. It's easier to do these things when you're younger. And the main benefits for me were the freedom feeling. So my core sleep was, I think I did 2:30 till 7:30. Then I had a nap around midday, nap around 5. So my core wake time was 6 till 2 a.m. Then probably 11 till 2 was my favorite time. That's complete alone time, independence. And unfortunately, I probably wasted the majority of that time playing online games, not doing anything productive.
Is that because you couldn't, or because that's just what you wanted to do?
At the time, that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
So, yeah, it worked. I did gain that stuff. I did have a bunch more hours, about 2.5 hours extra a day. And yeah, should I have not squandered them? I'm sure I could have made them quite productive. I wanted to.
Okay.
And these days, I now normally sleep monophasic. I do sleep between 5 and 7 hours. I aim for 7. That's my absolute aim. But I still tend to go to bed too late. Like, for example, I get up at 5 a.m. So I should really be sleeping when we're recording this right now in about 4 minutes, which is not going to happen.
Let's wrap up then, here.
So stuff like this is why I always go over. And I tend to do this stuff a lot. I don't really go to sleep early. So that leads us nice into what's next. The only thing we can really do to get better at this is sleep tracking. So for me, I use Fitbit. I have a Fitbit Inspire 2, which I use to track my sleep, and it records my light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, etc., and how it sort of segments. And I like it. There are plenty of sleep trackers available, from phone apps, watches. There's even a cool one, which is like a little ring. That seems pretty cool. Yeah. It's like 400 quid though, so yeah, not too fan of the price. But tracking sleep is essential should you want to improve it. So Ross, you've recently got a tracker and you've been tracking your sleep.
Yeah, well,
how's it going?
I mean, you outdid yourself with presents because I bought you a mug and you got me one of these, so I could join you in this little quest of yours. Yes, so I have an Inspire 2 as well, and I have been doing it this week. Well, what do you want to know? I mean, I've got the Fitbit app. I can tell you stuff. What do you want to know?
I mean, just generally, how's it going? Do you enjoy the fact that you're now recording sleep? You're a bit more aware of it, maybe more conscious in your light, your deep, your REM, that type of stuff.
Yes, I do, because I literally had no idea. And it's been, as I said, something that's I've always wanted to figure out if I could sleep better, or like I said, wake up feeling less rubbish. But I've never really figured out. I did try the dual phasic, or whatever you would call it, as in where you sort of sleep for about 6 core hours, I think, and then have one nap during the day.
Biophasic,
okay. I tried that for a while and I thought that worked quite well. And I can't remember why. I think I just ended up being, you have a day where you can't fit a nap in because you've got to work or something, and then it sort of goes out the window. But so I probably would like to give it another go, but it would seem my sleep is generally pretty good. I'm not very consistent as to when I go to sleep though. Sometimes it's like gone midnight, sometimes it's 10:30. My hours range from anywhere between 6.5 hours to 8.5 hours. So yeah, it's a little bit erratic, my sleep. Perhaps I would benefit from having a more fixed thingy, but the most one for me would be finding a way of waking up that is not sluggish.
Groggy. Yeah, so one thing the Inspire 2 does have is smart alarms. So you can pick a time that you want to wake up and set a smart alarm, and it'll wait until you're in a light sleep stage and only wake up then. So if you wake up in a light stage, you're unlikely to feel so groggy because you're closer to the threshold of being awake anyway. If you get woken up in a deep state, then yeah, you're going to be groggy,
So
especially if you're in a REM state.
I should be able to look at my thing and say, right, well, how close was I to the deep REM? Yeah. So that makes it. Well, according to this, I stop deep sleep from about 3 a.m. Thereafter, I'm in light sleep, but there is a sharp move from light sleep to awake, straight through REM, straight to awake, which may explain why I feel so rubbish. So I'm coming from a mid-stage sleep to awake in one go. I don't know.
Yeah, potentially. Didn't fulfill the stages.
Having some sort of ability to at least play with it, really, just to kind of go, okay, well, what can I try? What works? And matching the numbers to how you feel when you wake up. So, if you feel like you've had a good sleep, and then it says you've had you got your score of an 86, which I got, and you go, okay, well, that was good. Whatever I did last night was good. So I can look at what time I went to sleep. I went, okay, well, that's more of that. Maybe I, go to bed earlier or whatever it is.
And caffeine for bed as well, alcohol, that type of stuff.
Yes.
It's good to experiment when you got a tracker that can give you realistic results. So on Saturday, if you are going to have a couple of beers, it's interesting to see how it changes. It's quite freaky how accurate it is, to be honest, because you kind of assume, sort of knows-ish, but it's very accurate. My last piece is general good sleep practices. So for those who want to improve their sleep, and I think we've all agreed now that more sleep is better, you can experiment with naps, but they are generally ineffective over long periods of time. So assuming you're not suffering from insomnia or another sleep disorder, there is a few things we can do to improve our sleep. 12. Quickfire. Number 1, stick to a sleep schedule. So as you said, go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time. You nail that one. Number 2, exercise. So exercise is great. Don't do it too late in the day. Try to exercise at least 30 minutes most days, if not more. And don't do it 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, because that kind of gets you a bit too riled up. Number 3, avoid caffeine and nicotine. Stimulants, don't need them. 4, avoid alcoholic drinks before bed. So as we discussed, that makes REM sleep a bit of a problem.
Top tip, do your drinking in the morning.
Yeah, drink as much as you can when you wake up.
Glass of wine, 9 a.m. for breakfast, absolutely fine. Sorry.
Yeah. Number 5, avoid large meals and beverages late at night. So just don't eat before night, because then your body's busy digesting and mess your sleep up. 6, if possible, avoid medicines that delay or disrupt your sleep. So sleep pills, etc. Just try to avoid if you can. 7, don't nap after 3 p.m. So this is a good one. Napping does sort of reduce your sleep pressure, and you want your sleep pressure to naturally continue with your circadian rhythm. So when you're ready to go to bed, as soon as you have that consistent routine, you wake up at, say, whatever, you feel tired at whatever, but they're always going to be quite consistent. Number 8, relax before bed. Don't overschedule your days. There's no time left for unwinding. Always take some time to relax before you go to sleep. Reading, listening to music, that type of bedtime ritual that can just chill you out before you go. Number 9, take a hot bath before bed. Nice way to relax. Number 10, dark bedroom. cool bedroom, and ideally a gadget-free bedroom. We all know the blue light kind of messes you up. Just ideally, don't even take it to the bedroom in the first place. Don't really have TVs on or any sort of gadgets. Just leave it to be a sleep zone, and that's it. Number 11, have the right sunlight exposure. So daylight is key to regulating your daily sleep rhythms. You want to get outside in the day, get some natural light as much as you can, at least 30 minutes a day. And if possible, wake up with the sun or use very bright lights in the morning. So as you're talking about your hammock days, that's probably the best way you should sleep. Yeah, walk up with the sun.
Oh, well, move to Brazil then.
Best ad. And number 12, don't lie in bed awake. So the best advice there, if you're trying to go to sleep and you can't go to sleep, is just to get up and do something. Then try again later. It's not to stay in bed and stay awake and try to sleep. It doesn't tend to be so successful. But that's it. That's all I have. So nice bit of 12 tips at the end. I think the summary is, as I started with, the TLDR is less sleep, less life. Sleep more, more life. That's all I got.
Right, well. Tell me, you might be a bit tired.
Yeah.
So, I might go to bed.
It's 10:30. You better do it for your creativity.
So for everybody who hasn't already fallen asleep, remember to think, educate, and act, and we will see you next week.
Next week.
Bye.